to order. All please rise for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Good evening, Marcy. For the minutes, please, just to recognize there was an executive session held for tonight's meeting to discuss some personnel and possible litigation matters. First on tap, we have under public presentation, and I won't scare you guys yet, but you're welcome to come up to the microphone in case the board would have some questions. Commissioner Lurch and I met with folks from the Heather Knoll Town Association about some stormwater problems they've been having, some significant stormwater problems that they've been having. So first, I'd like Commissioner Lurch to comment a little bit on some items that were discussed, and we thank our residents and their attorney for joining us, and kind of where, and I'll provide some directions of what we believe the township and how we're going to move forward. So Commissioner Lurch.
Thank you, Mike. So we had a meeting with the homeowners association from Heather Knoll. The issue that they've been facing, they've had some serious flooding problems, and not to say that there are other areas of the township that don't have serious flooding problems. The HSA they put in already over, folks, you can correct me if I'm wrong, you've already spent over $200,000 to have $230,000 to have this problem mitigated. In reviewing the issue, what appears to have happened was when plans were approved for the development of this property back in the mid-1990s, it appears, and I can't say with 100% certainty, that the plans were approved and the development put in place with some missing pieces on the part of the township approval process. Pipes were put in, and what was happening is basically the pipes are undersized, it's not draining the water properly, and we had probably a dozen homes or more that are flooding. The HSA has approached the township to see if there's anything that we can do. We had a very nice meeting, very cordial meeting, very informative meeting. Based on the steps that the residents in that area have already taken, I am of the opinion that the township should look to help to mitigate future flooding in this area. They've had engineers come in with some proposal to rework the drainage in this area, and the township has assurances that the work that's being proposed is enough to stop the flooding. The HSA has come before the board and to ask if there's anything that the township can do. Because there is a probability that the township has some culpability in this matter, it is my opinion that the board should entertain at least assisting the HSA with whatever it takes to, whatever kind of work is required to mitigate the flooding problem. I am not envisioning that the board would take on the full responsibility. I'm of the opinion that we should have our engineers review the proposal, come up with some more definitive financial obligations. What I would like to ask the HSA then is to commit to the township to put in a substantial amount of money, and then the township could look to take on the project. I think that we should take this project on from a construction standpoint, so that when the work is completed, that we're assured that this will mitigate the issue and that we have to go back and do this a second time, or that there's a probability that the steps taken to right the one issue creates another issue somewhere else down in the Heaven Mills development. I don't know, Mike, at this point, I think I turn it back to you to address some of the steps that we can take. We can certainly ask the HSA to come forward and maybe fill the board in. Mike and I have done, I think, a reasonable job of representing your situation to the rest of the board. I don't know if your attorney is here, would like to come up and just maybe add a couple of other points, anything I might miss.
Thank you for your time this evening. Yes, we had a wonderful meeting together. Yeah, there's been issues looking back at the past as how the infrastructure was set up for the piping reasons. We've taken on the responsibility initially to come up with the best solution, and we've kind of been working with the township's professionals to do that. Our engineer came up with a sketch plan. We presented that, and we want the township to be able to also continue to provide commentary and opinions and thoughts on that. But based on the history of it, the current conditions, we feel it's the appropriate solution, but we also feel that there's some responsibility on behalf of the township based on all those decades ago and how did we do that. We're happy to show you a little bit more of the details of the proposal tonight. Basically, we're kind of trying to divert additional piping away from the flooding area to better flow all the different stormwater. That's creating an issue, but our engineer, Andrew, we have representative from the HOA, Denise Bond in the background, and we're happy to answer any questions you guys may have.
And just for the minutes, if you give Marcy your name and
Sure, sorry.
to the HSA.
Yep, Alexander Elliker, ELLIKER, attorney on behalf of everyone.
Thank you. And from our perspective, just to summarize, since you guys did a very thorough job of explaining it, what the board would like to do, since, we're not in a position just to say, oh, here's X number of dollars, go do it. If we want it done as part of the infrastructure, we would like to control the process. So what we would like is your engineer to work with our engineer, and Mr. Sedley, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, to work through a plan, a scope of work, have the township take control of the process, and then for you to ask your homeowners association, when we get the final number from our engineer, to say, what's the homeowners association willing to also put in, as Commissioner Lurch said, and we can go back to this board for a final approval. We do want to contribute. We do believe that, as Commissioner Lurch said, there's some stuff from the mid-90s that probably could have been corrected or done differently. But we, in this particular situation, I think every one of the five of us would be more comfortable if we're controlling the process than others say, here's, just a check for X number of dollars. So, Mr. Sedley, have I missed anything on that?
No, I think it's all correct. We had reached some sort of agreement with the HOA. We would want to see it, for the township's going to put in a meaningful amount of money, but also let a release saying, this is our one time helping you, and hopefully the problem doesn't occur.
Yep, I think that makes sense. And I think our engineers already worked with the township's engineer at the start of this process. I think there's a good relationship there, and we're happy to continue working with the township. So thank you for your time and your consideration on this.
Yeah, and then we'll be in touch, and then we get that final number ready to bid it and all that, then we can have another conversation about, where that threshold is.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if my fellow commissioners have questions or comments, but they've been made abreast of the situation between me and Commissioner Lurch about what we're attempting to resolve to help out the association.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Here, anyone sign in? I'm going to open up the first public portion. Time for residents, taxpayers of township comment on matters of concern, acts of deliberation that may be before the board. I'll see who's signing before I just take names. I would just ask that you please address the board. So, we can answer their questions. I don't think Kelsey is. All right, Kelsey, you can if you'd like. That's just here to learn off Mr. Secretary. Welcome, Kelsey. Would anyone like to speak under the first public portion?
Would you like me to come forward?
Yes, please.
Okay, as many of you know, I'm Matt Sinelli. I'm kind of concerned because I live near the Aqua Pool Club. I can't begin to name the list of things that I think are not quite legal or up to snuff with this. I know the lifeguards from Schlegel Park who were hired there quit on the first day because the music was so loud it was unsafe for children. You couldn't hear if a child was calling out for help. I personally think it's a great idea that that swimming pool is used, even if it's a private for-profit business. Lots of children from our neighborhood and other neighborhoods can come there and have a fun time over the summer. But, you know, my big concern is, I'm sure everyone is aware, that everyone surrounding that property hears that music all day long. Now, I don't care what music is being played, but my windows should not vibrate. And I'm there, you know, from 12 to noon, from noon until 8 p.m. I'm there. So these are just some of the issues that I think are, you know, of a concern. And I know that you don't have direct authority over any of this. Probably the county that does inspections of the water, you know, might find out what's safe or unsafe. But I just am really unhappy with that going on. And I'd like to know, is there a recourse? Is there someone else beside your body that I can speak with? Including excess trash, diapers. I'm walking through the parking lot, picking up trash, and people stare at me and dump their trash from their car up right in front of me. So those are the kind of things that I'm hoping that we do not encourage in our community.
Did we not have a conversation last year with the pool owners regarding noise?
We did.
We did have a
We
conversation.
have a whole conversation. This is actually the first official complaint that I've ever heard about the pool. And he's right now from you.
Yeah, so
For the time period it was open, we had no formal complaints from the codes department.
I've spoken. Okay, and again, I don't know how that filters out. I know that one of my neighbors had the police there the first day. I probably called the police 2 or 3 times a week. I think it's a ridiculous waste of public safety, you know, services and dollars for me to have to call the police every day. That's what I was told to do. I truly believe that Doug Merkham, O'Dally, and Carlos, who have had come to my home to talk about this, have the best of intentions. I truly believe that they want to do something positive, in addition to making a profit, since it's no longer a membership club. But I think they're in over their heads. They were very successful in marketing, and I'm just concerned both for the neighborhood as well as the people who attend the pool. And I'd like it to go on record. I understand that you may not take any action. Is there anything else that you might suggest that I do in order to make sure that the pool is operated in a safe and respectful way to everyone in the neighborhood?
Steve, how does our quality of life ordinance and the music going across the boundaries? How does
I
that?
would agree that that would come into play if we get notification or PD's getting notification and they feel as though it's loud, you know, they can notify or pass it on to us and then we can start to address the quality of life. I didn't have any formal complaints last year outside of a little bit of food issues. We did speak Mr. O'Dally multiple times in the process that he was getting this operational, looking to do a restaurant there and some other things that he wanted to do for that space. But we had multiple conversations about the fire inspections. He does have a Department of Labor Administrative Pool certificate for the operation of the pool itself in the state. We found no real violations for just the pool use in itself under the existing condition that it's been a pool for decades. So, I didn't have any complaints for having the officers that I had to go out. Maybe O'Dally got to clean it up before any of my personnel was down. I didn't have any real trash problems in the parking lot. My people about right notices on.
So what, and again, I don't want to waste our time here tonight, but what, even though I called the police like 2 or 3 times what would be done to make a report?
If you're seeing trash, things of that nature after any event or any time within that space, you want Muhlenberg Township to the complaint center and log in an official complaint. You'll have an
And
officer come out.
where is that? Is it with the police or with the customer service or is
With the
it?
codes department, with the app.
I
Using
have
the app,
used the
just have
map.
Accountability gets kind of pushed on to us, and then we follow through with it.
I'm sorry, but I probably filled more complaints through the app than you want to know than there are people here tonight. So my wife and I picked up 4 large bags of trash, including a couple dozen bottles of beer, a few half gallons of whiskey, people hanging out in the parking lot, sitting there, not going in because I think they caught on. They don't want people using drugs and drinking inside. So, yeah, I will continue to do the things
Yes,
that I've
send it to
done.
us, we'll certainly get somebody out, if you're seeing that trash in the parking lot, let us know. Obviously, it's during the event, there's vehicles in the space, it'd probably be a little better for us to come out once the event might be over, that we can officially see, not necessarily have our personnel
Yeah.
walking through the lot. And once the lot's been emptied, it would work in our favor to say, okay, Mr. O'Dowd has not cleaned this up after an event.
He, I've seen him out there, again, when he's there, I think he has the best of intentions. He has a positive, point of view on this. My approach is, if people leave the parking lot, I'm just gonna go out and take 15 minutes and pick everything up. So I'll try that. I
Yeah,
have
let us know.
photographs, I have
Yeah.
lots of photographs also, if you want to see them. So if there's anything else that you recommend that I do, I think that O'Dowd has told me that he can't be there all the time. So initially, he told me just call him when the music goes loud, and it became obvious that he doesn't have control over that. Perhaps I should have replaced my windows 10 years ago instead of having the old style where everything comes through. That's all I have to say. I would look at that property and say, why are you having 50-year flood events every year now? But I'm looking, forward to not having to live at that location. Thank you.
Commissioners, the police department has responded to his complaints. In addition, we monitored it. There were some issues at the beginning of at the pool's time, but we've got really no complaints since then, except for this gentleman. In fact, we get more people that are for the pool that live in the neighborhood, many more than complaints. So we monitored. There was some crowds outside the fenced-in area for a while, probably some trash too. But the noise level after the beginning has not been there as far as we could determine. But as it ramps up again, we'll be out there and we'll monitor and we'll see what we find.
I appreciate your concern. I don't know if you're aware of the number of times I have called your department, which I personally feel is a waste of your valuable time and resources. But I have audio recordings from my front door. I think you need to do a reality and truth check on it. That's kind of what I'll say, because I've lived here for 12 years. The real estate agent who sold me my home begged me not to move here. I was not aware of any problems.
All right, Mr. Sinai, I think you heard well, you can go through the appropriate channels, we'll deal with the complaints at hand.
You feel that, and you feel that no one else had the same complaints.
Well, we'll meet with the owner of the pool, we'll let him know that since before the season ramps up, that we've heard some additional complaints. And that we'll be monitoring the situation as we do with any other business or any other property. And if there's violations, we'll take the appropriate measures to cite, or the police will do what they do. And that's what we can commit to today, so.
I would appreciate any help that you can provide. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak under the first public portion? Seeing none, we will move on. I need a motion to approve the entire consent agenda.
Second.
Any questions or comments on the consent agenda? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Noes, if any. The ayes have it, so ordered. Unfinished business from the prior. All right, we'll go to new business. A motion to approve payment of bills presented by the Director of Finance and Customer Service to
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those, if any, the ayes have it, so ordered. The motion to adopt ordinance 607, amending chapter 63, the police pension plan to reflect the changes to the NTPLO collective bargaining agreement.
So moved. Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those, if any, the ayes have it, so ordered. I need a motion to adopt ordinance 608, setting commissioners' compensation.
Moved.
Second.
Questions or comments?
Not us.
It's not.
Yeah, I think that doesn't involve us.
Yeah, the Board of Commissioners has never had a formal ordinance to set our compensation, which is established by the First Class Township Code. So it's based on a population band. We don't, like other government entities, really set our compensation. But you can't run, your compensation can't be changed once you are filed a petition to be on the ballot and to get voted. So this is just formalizing the process of someone couldn't change their compensation midstream. So we just haven't done that before. So, second, Commissioner.
Yes, sir.
Any further questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those, if any, the ayes have it, so ordered. I need a motion to authorize the township manager to properly dispose of files from the office of the tax collector as stated on the March 2022 destruction of records request.
Seconded.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those, if any, the ayes have it, so ordered. I need a motion to approve payment application number 6 in the amount of $4,987.85 to Shannon A. Smith, Inc. for work completed on the existing public works building under contract C. Any questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those, if any, the ayes have it, so ordered. I need a motion to approve final payment application number 7 in the amount of $2,557.61 to Shannon A. Smith for work completed on the existing public works building under contract C.
Moved. Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those, if any, the ayes have it, so ordered. A motion to approve final payment application number 7 in the amount of $6,409 to Shannon A. Smith, Inc. for work completed on the existing public works building under contract B.
Seconded.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those, if any, the ayes have it, so ordered. I need a motion to approve payment application number 4 to CMS LLC in the amount of $155,445.58 for work completed on the Fifth Street Revitalization Phase 2 project.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Looking good. Looking real good.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those, if any, the ayes have it, so ordered. A motion to ratify resolution 2022-2, authorizing the township manager to apply for a statewide local share assessment grant in the amount of $294,401.
Second.
Questions or comments?
I'll just make a comment. This is a zero match grant. It doesn't cost us anything. And it will help out, I think, when there's flooding in the area to open up that Muhlenberg Creek in that area. So I think it's good.
Other questions or comments?
Yeah, we've talked about that creek bed for some time. I mean, it's a mess.
This has been a long time.
This is several grant applications that been made for this project. One was partially awarded last year. This should take care of the balance.
Let's do it.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those, if any, the ayes have it, so ordered. Motion to adopt resolution 2022-3, authorizing the township manager to execute run card change authorization forms for the Muhlenberg Emergency Services.
Move. Seconded.
Questions or comments?
I'd like to comment on this. Commissioner Wolfinger and I were able to sit with Muhlenberg Fire and Rescue as they were going through the run card process. You know, for a lot of us, and for me for a long time, you know, this is some strange and mystical thing that needs to take place. There is an awful lot of work that goes into creating the run cards for our fire department and for every fire department. And, you know, in talking with the fire chiefs over the years, you know, I don't think I ever came away with as full an appreciation for the amount of work that goes on behind the scenes to create this. I mean, in a nutshell, the department needs to sit down and they basically take a look at every type of call that they could possibly have to respond to. You know, everything from motor vehicle accidents with entrapment, structure fire, just everything. And they need to sit down and take a look at what apparatus we have is going to respond to that call. And then if you have to pull in mutual aid, where are you going to get that aid from? What kind of vehicles they have? You know, what kind of response rates they have? How far distance? It is a process. I think I sat through the first meeting itself probably went for 3 hours. And I think the department probably had 4 or 5 or more meetings just to do the run card. So it is an excruciatingly complex process. I'm glad I got to do it. I don't know that I would ever want to do it again. So I thank our volunteers for taking the time to do that. But, you know, when we sit down and you know, when we vote on this, I just want the board to be aware of the amount of work that went on behind the scenes.
It also involves the run cards for the ambulance association, which is important because there are some ambulance associations that do not honor our membership. So if it gets to a point where an ambulance from Penn State Hospital comes over here, they do not honor our membership, and you're gonna do it. If for whatever reason, if we don't have an ambulance that's available, they go down the list as to which is the next one in line. So we in run cards kind of put them a little bit lower under certain medical conditions. I mean, if there's a heart attack or something that's really needed, they're going to take the one that's closest. But if it's not that important, Penn State, St. Joe's is a little further down in line because we don't want you guys to get to do it.
Thank you, commissioners. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Noes, if any. The ayes have it, so ordered. A motion to authorize the police chief to purchase 2 new police cars in the amount of $77,306 from New Holland Ford. Moved. Questions or comments? Councilman, we get that 2029.
Part of that, the one we ordered in the fall has not been built yet. Last year's budget, and so these two are just on the drawing board. We don't have any idea, and it does come down to the microchips. That's what we're told. It's holding everything up.
And we're gonna stagger the, when they go into service, right?
We can do that, but we're not even sure when we're going to get them or how many we're going to get at any time.
So I
So
got that. All I'm
Yeah.
saying is if we buy 2 at a time, they're gonna wear out 2 at a time. If we stagger them at least by 6 months, we're gonna get a little bit better service.
yeah, I want to see them actually appear on our parking lot. Then we can decide
I hear you.
how to stagger
Thank you, Commissioner. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Noes, if any. The ayes have it, so ordered. Motion to enter an agreement with the Ostradowski Engineers Inc. to provide services necessary to complete the Laurel Run Park improvements associated with the DCNR grant received for the park.
Move.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
I'd like to thank the township manager for providing us an overview of what some of these improvements are going to be, because I couldn't quite visualize the park. If anybody's familiar with Laurel Run, you know, there's been a number of things done with the field down there over the years. I know that there's been request to turn it back into a skating rink in the wintertime, but the state kind of prohibits those things. Then we have basketball courts there, they got kind of tore up, and we did the sand volleyball, and, that didn't quite work out the way we thought it would. But the plans now to put in this, two pickleball, thank you, I'm sorry, I just looked at it, it's 4 pickleball courts, which is a really big thing these days, and a lot of residents take part in that game. A new gazebo pavilion down at the end, some improvements to the parking area. So that park is long overdue for some improvements. We talk about Jim Dietrich an awful lot, but if anybody would like to see the plans, you can come up after the meeting, and we'll be glad to show them. But I think it's good. A little long overdue for this part.
Beautiful park.
I think our park system is second to none in the county. And this, if you look at the map of what's going to be there, it's gorgeous. And just I'll say this for our staff. The more grass you put in, the more flower beds you put in, the more work there is to maintain. And we ask a heck of a lot from our staff. We'll be asking more.
Thank you, Commissioners. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Noes, if any. The ayes have it, so ordered. Any motion to authorize the solicitor to advertise an ordinance creating a fraud protection program for the police department?
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Chief wants to comment on this a little.
Sorry, Chief.
So this is one of the biggest crimes committed in the township, is duping people out of their money by false pretenses. And the main thing is getting people to purchase gift cards from our retailers and scratching off the numbers and giving the numbers to the scammer, who then buys goods and services with them. And to the point where it's pretty much out of control. And especially our senior citizens are buying into this, the scam that we have your grandson, in custody, we need bail money. I mean, everything under the sun, they keep changing every few months to a new scam, and they keep working to a certain group of people. So they go into one of our retail stores and they might buy $1,000 worth of gift cards. And this ordinance causes the retail establishment to notify the police when a gift card purchase is made over a certain amount. And it's worked in other communities across the U.S. It's a deterrent. We want to do an educational program first with the ordinance, and hopefully we'll be able to curb this quite a bit. It's a big dollar theft occurring all over the country. It's our biggest problem here in Muhlenberg as far as property crime goes.
Thank you, Chief. Any further questions or comments?
Quick question. What is the amount that you're proposing on that ordinance?
I have to check. I think it's like over 400 or 500.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Noes, if any. The ayes have it, so ordered. Any motion to authorize the township manager to execute the agreement between Muhlenberg Township and Burks 222, known as Agreement Building and Trades Inspection?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Noes, if any. The ayes have it, so ordered. Need a motion to authorize ground construction and close a portion of Stouts Ferry Bridge Road and provide an appropriate detour to perform water and sewer line installation.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those if any. The ayes have it, so ordered. Any motion to authorize the chief of police to extend a conditional offer of employment to one candidate on the current civil service list of candidates?
Seconded.
Any questions or comments? Okay.
Is that a good choice?
Yeah, good choice. Looks like you got the stuff.
Any further questions or comments for the chief? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Noes, if any? The ayes have it, so ordered. I need a motion to award the RLE Grant Improvements Project to R Signal and Lighting Company, Inc. in the amount of $90,450.
Move.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
What is the ARLE?
ARLE stands for the Automated Red Light Enforcement Program.
Okay.
We're going to be installing new school warning devices on Kutztown Road.
Okay. I just didn't know the letters. See what comes down the road, the school thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Any more questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Noes, if any? The ayes have it, so ordered. I need a motion to provide conditional approval to the Red Muhlenberg Career and Technology Center for the land development plan to construct a new welding and fabrication shop condition on SDEI's latest review letter dated on March 11th, 2022, and based on the planning commission's recommendation that the plan be conditionally approved with all waivers as applicable.
Moved. Thanks.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those, if any? The ayes have it, so ordered. Motion to award the 2022 equipment rental bid to Reamstown Excavating, Schlau Inc. and Folk Paving.
Moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those, if any? The ayes have it, so ordered. I need a motion to reaffirm resolution 2021-17, revising the township sewage plan for the Panda Express Land Development Plan.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Are they still fighting amongst the sinkhole?
That's not what's holding this process up. What's holding the process up now is the sewage planning line,
So they're moving forward with.
the remediation, yes.
Any further questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those, if any? The ayes have it, so ordered. I need a motion to authorize the Assistant Township Manager to execute an agreement with Radio Maintenance Incorporated to install upgraded security cameras at the Reading and Crest Avenue Yard Waste Collection Site in the amount of $15,525.
Moved.
Second.
These are gonna be real good cameras so we can see license plates and things, right?
Got it.
license plate capture, and then a set of 20 megapixel cameras at the back hole. So we have a complete bird's eye of the entire drop off area.
Very good.
Are these the same we'll be looking for, Jim Dietrich, the entryway? We talked about that. Yeah. All right. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those, if any? The ayes have it. It's so ordered. Any other commissioner have anything under other new business?
I'm gonna bring up one minor topic, nothing I think we need to take any action on, but Commissioner Wolfinger and I have been discussing our liaison roles as they were appointed in the beginning of the year. One of the things that I was working on in depth was the creation of the new township comprehensive plan. After taking on the liaison role for Parks and Rec, yeah, all the things that come with that, and still having my fingers in the comp plan, I just realized that there were going to be way too many meetings for me to be able to attend and devote my time to in the way that the residents should expect of me. So in having a couple of conversations with Commissioner Wolfinger, we decided that we're going to go back to the liaison roles that we had at the end of last year. So Steve, I will once again be coming back to codes and to the planning commission so that I can kind of finish the project that I started. And Commissioner Wolfinger will be going over to Parks and Rec. So nothing Karen against you or the Parks and Rec crew. I just, there's a lot of things taking place under both areas that require a lot of time and effort, and I just didn't want to, find myself burning the candle at both ends and not being able to attend to anything the proper way. So anyway, I don't think there's anything that we need to support. I just want to share that with the public and have it as a matter
Joe, we just update our stuff, right? Any further new business?
Yes,
Commissioner?
I'd like to have a discussion about opening the well at Jim Dietrich Park. That's already been drilled. It was drilled not too far from the dog park, and it's the most yielding well, has 2 million gallons per day. We have a little discussion here years ago, I don't know how many years ago it was, that 1990, put me on here, 1995.
3 years ago.
But
I
I'm
don't know
thinking
how many
about
times we gotta go with the same topic, but go ahead.
Pardon me?
I don't know how many times we gotta go with the same topic, we just voted it down, but go ahead.
Well, anyway, let's open the discussion.
Go right ahead.
Jeff, would you mind telling us a little bit, stepping up to the mic and explaining to why we really are at this one, please? Also in attendance this evening, we have the chairman of the Muhlenberg Township Authority Board, and we have Mr. Jeff Choppino here, the manager of the Muhlenberg Township Authority. He's been with the Township Authority well over 40 years, started in the ditches like everybody else works. We have to manage it. There's nobody in this township that knows what's going on in this township like this guy. Because he signs all the bills, he sees everything that comes in, those all repairs, the whole works. So I depend on his expertise.
We've come to the point where we need more water in the township to be able to supply our residents with a reliable supply. I did talk to him a little bit. That doesn't account for failure at any of the wells. That puts us in a real bind, or have come to the point where we're out of locations that we can drill a well for municipal use. So the only course we have at this point would be to go to an outside source to purchase water from a surrounding water authority. Some of the problems with that is you have an ongoing bill, no matter what happens, whether you use that water or not, you're going to be paying that amount of dollars every month, because any infrastructure that has to be done is going to have to be paid for. We've discussed it with Western Berks Water. They're willing to foot the bill for the infrastructure, but obviously any outlay that they have for that and capital cost is going to be rolled into the monthly billing and continue, until that's paid off. But no matter what, you still have a monthly charge, whether you're using the water or not. We looked at Rawa. There's several issues with going with Rawa because their pressures are lower than Muhlenberg's. So the only way to get water into our system from theirs would be to build a pump station, a booster pumping station, and actually push the water into our system. The second issue with them is they use chloramine for disinfection of the water. We use chlorine in our water. The two can't mix. So you have additional processes basically to strip out their disinfection and our disinfection so they can mix in the system. If you don't do it, you end up with taste and odor problems. So one other one that came up since we discussed this before was Maiden Creek. Again, it's a big dollar item to get the main from them to us, and they're going to roll in all of the infrastructure charges. Any debt service will be paid by the authority until it's paid off. So at this point, we feel that the most cost-effective way to get the water we need for the township is to go back to that well and ask the commissioners for approval to do it. We can build that well, probably engineering, they told us $2.5 million from start to finish to develop that well. To go into any of these other sources, we have more than that, plus an ongoing bill month after month that we don't ever get out from under. That's
Just a rough idea for a building, for a town pump house. I'm visualizing nothing much wider than this room and about where you're standing to this wall behind me, correct?
if that.
If that, that's about the standard size,
Yeah.
smaller, standard size of a well.
Right.
Building.
And the building itself can be made to look like whatever you want it to look like. It could be stone faced to look like an old farm building, outbuilding on the farm. It can be made to look like whatever you want it to look like.
And the township authority has agreed to pay the cost of moving the dog park, which what we could talk about is we just acquired 12 acres of land from Grande that he could not use. So the dog park could move to a different location, which would be basically from the big pavilion. That's the land that was acquired. So it wouldn't be any loss of services to the public as far as dog park use. There will still be a dog park. The contention seems to be that when the agreement was made, the purchase was made at the Jim D. Creek Park, I'm not exactly sure the language, maybe the solicitor can help me out there, but basically they had a little caveat in there that nothing.
I'll be happy to read it. I'll be happy.
Okay.
So this doesn't have to do with the dog park, or this has to do with the legal agreement that we signed with Faye Dietrich. That's what it has to do. I understand your point. We get into the quarry and the water resources and where they're at, what we should do, where should we expend the money. But her wishes when we bought the park was the deed for the property shall contain such provisions and restrictive clauses as may be necessary or appropriate in the buyer's and seller's attorney's opinions, cause the property to be subject to the existing contemplated usage restrictions and obligations provided in paragraphs 2 through 12B. Will provide that if you like, and to be used for municipal recreation land or public park purposes, used for recreation or for the enjoyment of scenic and natural beauty, and open to the public for such use on a non-discriminatory basis. So what I would have that mean is, where does it stop at? I hear the point, and my point before was adamant about it. But if she knew she had the biggest well down there, do you think she would have sold it to the township for $1 million? Do you think she would have sold it to a developer for $25 million to build homes?
No, I know what you're saying.
I mean, I understand. I understand the point. My understanding is we're in no desperate need of water at the moment. And we have a quarry sitting there. I know if we're not gonna use it, then let's sell it. All I'm saying is it's not about the dog park and the misconception that it's about a legal agreement. Let's just throw our union agreements out and only choose what we want, the pension agreement, and only choose what we want to responsibly adhere to. I just think this was very clear that she didn't want this stuff to happen. That's why she gave us this park, because where does it stop from here? And we won't, and that's what our conversation was. Look, I'm only one vote. The four of my peers may want to go ahead through it. But we voted this down before because of the same. I don't know what's changed all of a sudden, because it wasn't never about the dog park. It was about this legal agreement that even your own solicitor, if I read the minutes right, is ensure that you have that ability to go do that. And from what I'm told, said, well, let's go to court and find out. So that's, that concerns me that we're doing something here that wasn't the general nature of what that park was. I can appreciate the concern, Jeff, about the water. I don't know who keeps pushing this, but are we gonna have this come up every month then? So I hope the board votes for it, puts it up or down, and we move on. But as I can't be any more clear as I was before, I think this is absolutely the wrong way for this township to go, or we should not honor any legal agreement. It's just not honor any of it. Because that's how passionate I feel going through this with it's not about the dog park, it's about her giving us this piece of land that just won an award. It's probably sitting somewhere, that she didn't want us to put public improvements on it, or she would have put she would have put specifically in the agreement not to. That's my point. So I'll shut up, I promise. I hear you, Jeff. But I think if there's not other ways to do it, plus we've got this beautiful party sitting there. I know it's too pure, I read the minutes, and the conversation before, but then we just let it sit there for another 50 years and not do anything with it?
We're talking about two different things right now. The quarry is gonna cost 20 million over.
Okay, we won't talk about the quarry then, we'll talk about.
Let's take the quarry out of it. We took the dog park out of it.
But
Now, the reality
can I
is
say
this.
something?
Yeah.
Can I say something? You know, the vote last time was 3-2. I was one of the two that said, yeah, let's do it. After about a month or so after that vote came by, I went over to the drilling area and there was a cave all around the drilling area. And I spoke to the other commissioners for it and I said, I guess we were wrong. Because that was one of the concerns also that there was a lot of limestone in Jim Dietrich Park and that pulling 1 million or 2 million gallons out a day, what's going to fill in there? And
Well, part of that was because it was only a test well. If it would be developed, it has to be reamed bigger, and then the whole thing gets routed to seal it and prevents that from happening.
that was my concern. That, like, show me a guy with some letters behind his name that's going to say we're not going to have these cave-ins in our jewel. Jim Dietrich Park's our beautiful park.
Right.
And, you know, that was one of the issue that was a concern. And the other issue was that 400-foot diameter, 800 feet circumference,
Okay.
that basically you couldn't really do anything with. And if we would ever vote for this, I would look for a Judy Spank or somebody to say, that's stupid because every other well we have here, we have one that's a matter of feet away from Fifth Street Highway. And that's just stupid to take away that amount of land from Jim Dietrich Park. You know, I understand you could put the building up and make it look really nice. I agree with you. But why kill 800 feet?
No, it's not 800 feet.
It's 400-foot radius. If that's what they deem.
That's what if they determine. I'm suggesting to the board, let's at least explore all the things that's gonna turn up if we decide to move one well. The well's already been drilled, it's been plugged. What would have to come out, as Jeff said, it's a test. And also, what was it, 8-inch case?
Yeah.
And it's gonna have to be bigger. It's not gonna disturb the appearance of the park. I would think Mrs. Dietrich would say if we had the availability to let this township grow and be serviced fully so that customers have water in the future, that you'd probably sit here and say, hey, you know what, it's just a hole in the ground. You're just gonna put a small building up, it's not a big deal. You're not gonna lose a whole lot of park area. You can still park one. It's not gonna be chain link fenced. It's not going to disturb the appearance of the ambiance of the park.
I can't interpret her thoughts, I'm sorry, Commissioner King. I can only interpret the language in our agreement of sale. I can't interpret what her thoughts were. If she thought differently, I would believe they would be different in the agreement of sale. So that's my point, is she specifically put that in for a reason. I believe a reason so this didn't happen, and I believe a reason because she could have sold that property for a whole lot more money if she would have known we were going to start drilling wells and wetlands and stuff. I'm sorry, Commissioner, Lee, go ahead.
Jeff, I'm a complete rank amateur, don't know diddly about squat out there, digging wells. That 12 acres that was just dedicated to the park, that would not fall under the purview, correct? Of the agreement. So why not cross trail? Why not build a house on that new section, coordinate off the 400-foot radius, and then
We actually looked at that property when the vote was a no. We looked at that, our geologist looked at that property to see if there was any viable place to drill on that property. And we were gonna try and work a deal with Grande. There's nothing there. Or we would have looked at it.
We previously drilled six wells. Some down in the range.
Yeah, there's two down in the silt
And a
basin.
couple in JD Park.
I just
And,
thought that was private land, so I don't.
But it's gonna be a matter of, what are we gonna do about the future of Muhlenberg? If you don't have the water. Western Berks said they could put a pipe under the river. And at their cost. But guess what? Just as soon as they start paying their bills, they're gonna start charging Muhlenberg Township residents to pay for that pipe under the river.
Yeah, that service would be rolled into the monthly fees.
Same way with Rowell as far as the difference between chemicals used to treat the water and the pressure. There's all types of expenses now. I do, for the public's sake, we got this big hole in the middle of the township called a quarry. It's got a lot of water in there. But it would cost, years ago, it was priced out at over $20 million to put a pump station and all things that you needed, even as a storage plant, not plant,
Pump station.
pump. You have to put all that stuff down there to make it work. It's been looked into.
Yeah, the initial thought when we purchased the quarry was, number one, all the water that's coming into that quarry is groundwater. It's smack dab in the middle of Muhlenberg Township. We get all of our water for the township out of wells, out of the ground. We didn't want it to be sold off to somebody that would go in there and start contaminating or dumping or whatever, and have that come back into our well system in the township. We did have the idea of possibly using it as a source at some point. We went through initial testing, but when we got all the test results back and found out what we would have to put in there and the cost to put it in, it would have been about a 65% rate increase to the customers, just to cover the debt service.
And our rates right now in the county are
Lowest.
the lowest in the county for water rates.
And that's, that's part of the reason, Mike, that we're looking at this is we're looking to the customers. If we go outside of the township, again, we have no control over the rates that they're going to charge us, just like the city does for sewage.
Yeah, I know, just so you know, I don't disagree with any of those statements. I don't disagree with, doing an analysis of getting it from Berks and Rowan. I'm sure you've done a lot of those. I'm just saying that I think this particular property, it doesn't matter. She didn't want us to do it. It's in this agreement. And if you want to go to court, decide it. It's up to the fellow commission. I may just be preaching because I'm passionate about it, because I believe, when I heard how the agreement would rest, is we were given this wonderful tract of land at a significantly discounted rate for it to remain a public park. I believe, Jim, that's the history you've been given, Karen, the history you've been given. And I appreciate all the comments and feedback. And it goes back to the one simple thing for me, is we have to live up to our obligations, what's in the agreement of sale. I just don't know what else to tell anybody. I think I strongly believe that, or then our word's no good anymore. That's it.
Well, I'm gonna add to that just a little bit. The night that we had the meeting here where Jamal brought in family members of the Dietrich family, I was the deciding vote to vote no at that time, because I felt bad for that family. But the reality is the township needs this product, the product's right there. And so we run out of water. What are we gonna do with that? 10 years from now?
We have one of the biggest, aren't they bottling it here, selling it all over the place? We have one.
We talked about that. There's nothing we can do with the quarry right now.
Well, first, I want to give the residents, according to the information that we're not in any close to being in any bad position for a lack of water.
Well, wait, hold on.
No, we've only got 500,000 a day of excess water.
And what happened when the breaker?
Last weekend, we had a breaker go out at well number 8. We lost 720,000 a day.
So
Right there.
So when it was voted down by this board, your answer was, we're just gonna keep going after this, not coming up with any alternatives. That's
No,
what-
we looked at the alternatives. We tried to drill in Jim Dietrich, or in the silt basin.
Okay.
We drilled 2 wells over there.
Answered my question, yeah, thank you.
is there not any other place, even on private land, that we might be able to look into?
Yeah, we did a full study of the township with the engineers. Geologically, the number one area was in the area of Jim Dietrich Park, because
Because not drill sideways, like they do up in Williamsport.
not for that amount of water, no. It has to be a vertical turbine pump, not a submersible pump, and they can't put that in an angle well.
You know, it's been a good discussion, but I'm not convinced that we're in that dire straits for water. It just seems to me that if the authority thought years ago that we were still in that dire straits, that we would have seen some other type of action to get other water into this township, that there would have been some other kind of movement. In regards to Commissioner Malinowski's concerns, I think he and I agree to disagree. I think that a well and the area around it that, you know, you're not allowed to use for anything else, to basically keep it natural. I think that fits into the agreement, because I think that there are things you could still do at the park, you could put a trail or something on there. My concern, and I've discussed this with Commissioner Wolfinger, is, you know, that we start drawing water out of that well, and we start creating sinkholes over in our premier park. You know, I don't want to sit here and say that we're drawing water out and suddenly see some kid's soccer team fall into a sinkhole on a plant, on a field. My concerns are the sinkholes in that area. And I still am not convinced that we're at that dire straits that, you know, suddenly we have to make some kind of action today. There are other alternatives.
We've been looking, Kevin, since 2014, is when we did the initial study to see if we needed water. And that's why we then came back with a plan of where to drill wells, because we knew we were going to need them. So we've been going since 2014 looking for another source.
But we kind of keep coming back to the same recommendation. And I don't know at this point that there's any other discussion that needs to be had. It's, you know, I don't know if we need to call for a vote to further discuss this. I have to look at our solicitor for that.
Somebody can certainly make a motion.
I make a motion to put it up for a vote, because we're gonna have to, sooner or later, we're gonna be out of water. Now, it's not a dire need at this moment, so don't go home and panic and turn on your spigots and fill up your jugs, because it's not that dire. But as Jeff explained to me, he would know, and is there any firefighters here this evening? When they got a fire, they use a lot of water. If you want to put your house out, you're gonna need the water. Also, we're working on economic development. Right now, we got a contract with Manderbach. Burlington's moving over to Kmart. Somebody's going to be moving into Burlington. We're waiting on the word for MGK. We got all these things that's going to be popping up in the future. We've got to stick with the future of Muhlenberg Township. I'm sorry if an agreement might be fuzzy as far as the words or somebody's implication when it was originally written. But the fact is, there's need and if you don't have water, what do you got?
And this isn't something that happens overnight. I mean, if we were given permission to do the well, you're looking at 2 to 3 years before it would actually be in service.
But I want to make it clear to the public, because what I keep hearing is we're going to be out of water, out of water, out of water. And at no point are we going to be at a point where somebody turns a spigot on and there's nothing coming out.
Kevin, you're going from one extreme.
No, I want clarification for the
Soccer teams
public.
falling in the
You
hole.
made the comment that we are going to be out of water. And I want it to be clear to the public, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but we are not going to be out of water. We are not out of water.
If you
we're not gonna
had
turn
a major
spigot on.
fire at what was WR Grace, and they draw the water that they draw when they have a fire there. You're gonna have people in Riverview Park that aren't gonna have water.
Water pressure goes down. In the
Yes.
city of Reading, when they have a major fire and they're drawing water from Lake Long One, water pressure goes down. They're drawing from the largest water system
Mhm.
in the entire county. And when they have a fire, water pressure goes down. We have the same thing. We are not talking of being out of water. We're not talking that for months on end, somebody's gonna turn a spigot on and have no water.
No,
I
not
just-
much on that, no.
We're not gonna have that situation. So we need to
But
be
there's a big
clear.
difference between us and the city of Reading. When they have a fire, they can turn on an additional pump and pump more water into their system.
Okay, so. we're
Last
talking-
Saturday, we had every pump in our system running, and we're just staying even because we lost the well for 3 days.
So we're saying, but we're not talking about, when we say out of water, it makes it sound like the entire township is gonna be dry.
That you're right, no, it's not gonna be the
So
entire
we
township.
should not
out of
be
water.
using that type of phrasing to put fear in the public's mind.
Fear in everybody's freaking minds. Don't talk to them, though. Yeah.
No, you're not gonna be totally out of water. All we're saying is, last Saturday, when we lost that well, and we started everything else up, if we would have had a major fire, people would have been losing water somewhere in the township.
Yeah, I lost enough water last week, but to be honest, look, if it comes down to that, I don't see any future long-term problems like that sustain, like on the very near future. I mean, we had water back within 48 hours, less than 24 hours.
That was a broken pipe.
Yeah.
But Jeff, when I was liaison with the authority, I remember there was some type of a regulation that you had to supply X number of gallons during the hottest time of the day,
Mhm.
with your best pump out of order, and you still had to supply the water for that particular.
Well, 14, our largest well.
Where are
if
we
that-
at, where are we at with that?
We would be in trouble. If well 14 went down today, we would not have enough water to continue for more than 4 or 5 days. That pumps 1,400 gallons a minute out of that well. It's been running full-time since 1989, except for 2 days. Sooner or later, it's gonna have to be rehab, rework, new, the motor's gotta be redone, all that, any maintenance item like that, you have to account for, but it, like you say, that study said if your largest supply went down, you had to have enough, we don't.
And the well next to the Public Works building wasn't being used.
Right, well, it is now.
You're using all your wells.
There's only 2 wells in the system that aren't running, one pumps 75 gallons a minute, the other pumps 110 gallons a minute, those are very small in the scheme of things. Everything else is running.
How about if we table this till next month? We're not gonna run out of water in the next 30 days. But this is a serious discussion. As everyone can see, there's a lot of passion up here. And I'm with Mike as far as an agreement. My handshake is my contract. Everybody knows that. I take that seriously. I take these types of things, written agreements, seriously. But we also have to take into consideration that we've got to look into the future and see what's going to be best for the overall township. Now, if you're talking about a building smaller than this area right here, are you really messing up a beautiful park? These guys know how I feel about Jim Dietrich Park. I'm with you. I don't want to do anything that's going to mess up the aesthetics. You mentioned, you're going to put up a stone building, something that looks like an old farm building. You can do anything you want to do, but it's going to serve the community. And down the road, if something major happens, W.R. Grace I mean, if that place ever catches fire, you're gonna have every fire company in the county sit there trying to put the damn thing out, so this stuff is flammable. Am I correct?
It is. What's WR Grace?
Well, the former, the WR Grace.
What is it,
What's it called? Trade.
Nova Pack?
Nova Pack. And then Trade Pack, they have the same material.
Those big rolls of foam are highly flammable.
Yeah, them big, they're trays. You know how quick those trays melt, those meat trays. What do you say we table it until next month? So heads or core, maybe people give us some thought.
Yeah, we can, Butch, and we can bring it up and I'll ask.
No, we'll bring it up next month for
Sure, you know, if anyone has some questions, reach out to Jeff, and, I mean, if we're at this point, Commissioner Lurch, I think Commissioner Lapid, I'd be shocked if we went have an alternative, what if it was private property, and I went, let me take it by eminent domain, if it was my house?
You're
I'm
talking
asking
about
Mr.
this.
Sack. If it's on private property and I said no, then you take it by,
With the authority, you could condemn it, yeah.
so, okay, that's.
But we're not condemning,
No,
no, we don't say that.
If it were private,
I asked him, because
Yeah.
Jeff, we said we didn't look at any private part, to Derek's point about being able to tunnel under. Look, I'm not about the aesthetics of what the well will look like. I told you, this isn't like us against them. This is me about this. And I appreciate it. And I want us to have the best quality water at the best possible rate. Like I said, this is at my book. Okay, talked about it a bullet. Everyone understands my point. That's why I'm passionate about it, because we made an agreement, and I think we can live up to it and work as hard as we can with Jeff and his board to come up with a viable alternative as possible that can do, let alone the other concerns that come up. So we'll talk about it next month, and
At least,
we'll talk to Jeff. We can just talk to Jeff if we have more questions. If that's fair. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
thanks, Jeff.
All righty. Anybody else wish to speak under the public portion? Yeah, yes. No board appointments, okay. Moving on, we'll go to staff comments. All right.
No comment. All's good.
Sorry, I read the trash filter at the end.
Chief?
Nothing to add.
Karen?
Two items. Number one, there's a flyer over on the table over there for a meeting this coming weekend. The School River Greenways Association is hosting a public outreach meeting to discuss the route the Schuylkill River Trail may take through Berks County, so it's open to the public. The other is, Jeff informed me tonight that the Lises Bridge Interceptor Sewer Project is to be completed end of the day Wednesday. Final paving will occur in May. We will have the opportunity at the April meeting to understand the cost of paving the entire portions of the affected roads. The MTA is going to pave half of Lises Bridge Road and half of Sofianos where they perform their excavations. We'll have the opportunity to determine whether we want to pave the other half and scratch those sections of road off the list.
And just so we're clear, the ballpark figure right now is like
36,000. Right.
Thank you. Commissioners, Commissioner Roach, you're up first. Go ahead.
All right, nice to see everybody here. I don't know if just the warmer weather brings everybody out, but it's nice to see people come and watch us in action. Hope we didn't disappoint. And by that, I mean that, you know, I read minutes, I read articles about other municipalities and some of the meetings that they have. And we can get very passionate up here and, you know, but for the most part, we usually stay pretty calm. You know, as opposed to some of our municipalities. So, you know, that's your government in action. You know, we talk things, we debate things, we vote things, and we're glad that you're here to watch us, and we're glad that you make comments that we can act on. Because if we don't understand what your feelings and your passions are, then we can't vote appropriately. So thank you all for coming out tonight.
Sure.
I've said it all along for a lot of years that rumors are destructive. I'm gonna tell you something right from the horse's mouth. A few weeks ago, I was arrested for an election violation. The violation was I sent out cards in the mail with 4 people's names on, run for school board back in November. I didn't ask the people's permission, 2 of them. And as a result, one of them complained to the police department actually, and I guess they turned it over to whoever gets it next. But the Berks County elections, I don't know of anybody that's ever been arrested because they didn't put their name on a postcard. They went out, my address was on, but not my name. Problem is this, as I see it. They're trying to use me to distract everybody from the real problems at the school. And the real problems at the school are real. As far as I'm concerned, that school's on fire. There's 18 school districts in this town, in this county, and we're 15th. That is unacceptable, folks, period. But yet, 2020, when I became the school liaison, January of 2020, on a Monday night, first Monday night, that following Wednesday night, I went to the meeting and I asked them not to raise taxes. Because basically what you're doing is driving people out of their homes. They can no longer afford high school taxes. They've been raising the property taxes year after year for decades. And it's the same old board that's doing it. They gotta go. So I asked them not to raise the taxes. Now the school's closed for over a year. And they got $5.5 million from the federal government, and they raised their freaking taxes anyway, 2.4%. That was out of spite. If you looked at the test scores just a few weeks ago in the Gray Eagle, we suck. Basically, what they're doing is putting kids out the door that really don't have an education prepared for the rest of their lives. And we're paying for it. So I'm madder than hell, to be honest with you. I'm just as passionate as Mike is. But in any event, you get the idea. They're just using me for distraction. Don't buy into it. Now, I gotta go to actually a jury trial now. April 9th, 9 a.m., I gotta sit in the Berks County Courthouse because of the silliness. This was all put together by one guy. I'm not going to mention his name, but I'll tell you he's a school board member. When people go on the Zoom meetings, parents go on the Zoom meetings and they start talking, they turn them off if they ask a question. Who are they representing? Sure as hell ain't us. I've said my piece. Thanks for turning up tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Wolf.
On my way to this meeting tonight, I ran down a tractor trailer going like, parked in the road, stopped him and come at him. Just let everybody know this.
We've got good new contact info for Med-Ed. Jen Rivera.
I'm surprised that Karen doesn't say anything about what's going on in the parks this summer. If you get on the website, you're gonna see things happening. Well, every week there's something that seems to be going on. And there's a lot of things happening over the summer. So get on that website and please attend all the concerts. Next thing I think is the egg hunt with the barrel train. Bring your young kids out there. It's not going on this summer.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Lupia.
Just wanted to compliment our police department. Report last month, pretty good. Also, wanted to encourage people to start getting outside and enjoying those parks. That, as you can tell, there's a lot of stuff on the horizon for them. So I appreciate the huge crowd for us tonight, and thank you guys for coming out. Thank the staff. And work there.
Thank you all for coming. Thanks, Township staff, for the work that you can do. As Commissioner Lurch said, this is, we'll talk and we agree to disagree. We're passionate about certain things and we're not. This isn't about us having some agenda about not wanting water, wanting a dog park, wanting something. This is about, stuff that we all passionately believe in. And obviously, I think we all believe in the stuff that the authority does versus the township. Hopefully, we'll hear the debate. My only last parting remarks are if we need to also have alternatives. That would be the only thing I would request if it does get voted down one way or another next month, is that we can't just keep coming back every 2 years and saying, oh, we're 2 years down the road. So I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate everyone's input, and I thank you all again for coming and enjoy the night. Thank you.